portfolio can work for you, and how you can retire with more peace of mind than those around you who are using tired and outdated strategies. So get on track to retire with confidence and knowledge. Call Matt Taylor and his team at Taylor Retirement Services, 800 482 4720. That's 800 482 4720. Come in for a visit. Let us educate you on tax planning, long term care solutions, and the all important income streams you'll need in retirement. And in the meantime, keep listening to the Financial Symphony with Matt Taylor, Saturday mornings at 7, right here on Oldies 102.9 and AM 960 WHYL.
When I grow up, I want to be a new pair of blue jeans.
When I grow up, I want to be a kid's first computer.
When I grow up, I want to be a glass countertop in a new home.
When I grow up, I want to be a kid's best birthday present.
When I grow up, I want to be a football stadium.
When I grow up, I want to be a warm place on a cold day.
When I grow up, I want to be a fancy backsplash.
I want to be a bike that races around the country.
When I grow up, I want to be a bench on a forest trail.
I want to be a rocking chair on a sunny porch.
I want to be a skyscraper.
When I grow up, I don't want to be a piece of garbage. And if you recycle me, I won't be.
Give your garbage another life. Recycle. Learn how at iwanttoberecycled.org. A public service advertisement brought to you by Keep America Beautiful and the Ad Council.
Over a half-century of friendship and confidence, Hollinger Funeral Home and Crematory of Mount Holly Springs is the funeral home families depend on, now offering pet cremation services too. Owner and supervisor Eric Hollinger, Robert Felburn III, and M. Annan Hollinger, licensed funeral directors, are committed to compassionate care. Call them today at 486-3433 and ask about traditional funeral and burial services or on-site cremation for yourself, a family member, or a pet. Shouldn't you be the one to make the decisions about your final arrangements? Plan your funeral now according to your wishes. You may also pre-fund it at today's rates to ensure against future price increases. Hollingers will also honor the transfer of your existing pre-arrangements with another funeral home to theirs. Pre-planning relieves your family of a heavy burden at a stressful time. You can depend on compassion in your time of need from Eric Hollinger and his professional staff at the Hollinger Funeral Home and Crematory, 501 North Baltimore Avenue, Mount Holly Springs.
You take a test to get your driver's license. You take a test to find out about your cholesterol. So how do you know if you have dangerous levels of radon gas in your home? Take the test. Radon is the second leading cause of lung cancer. It's odorless, colorless, and radioactive. Testing is quick and inexpensive, so take the test. It could save your life. Sponsored by the Pennsylvania Department of Environmental Protection.
Does your life seem meaningless? Do you feel a void in your spirit, an emptiness in your soul? Does it appear that there's no hope? Are there issues and problems in your life that you want to break away from and feel like you can't? Do you wonder, how can I be free from these issues that have destroyed my life? Well, my friend, I have the answer. Bible Way Hibner Memorial Church of God in Christ presents Chain Breakers, this and every Sunday at 9 a.m. here on WHYL.
From the L.B. Smith Ford Lincoln Studios, Oldies 102.9 is WHYL Carlisle.
Welcome to the Real Estate Radio Guys, your weekly source for all things real estate. We're your hosts, real estate broker John Rainville and your mortgage expert Kingsley Harmer discuss everything from mortgage rates to home staging for foreclosures and everything in between that affect the daily real estate market. Real people, real questions, real answers. Today's show is brought to you by www.pagoloan.com, your source for new mortgage loans. NMLS number 1018. EnviroQuest, trusted for home inspections and radon mitigation in Central PA for over 25 years. And brokersrealty.com, the easiest way to search for real estate in your hometown. Now, on to the show.
Well, it's you're listening to John Rainville, the real estate broker at brokersrealty.com, one of the hosts of the Real Estate Radio Guys. And as usual, my co-host is...
Hello, Kingsley Harmer. This is tough. Mortgage guy, over 20 years, been in real estate, investing, realtor. So
Hey, I got to tell you something. You probably have not even thought about this. Do you realize we've done over 100 shows now?
I was gonna say, do you realize today marks our 2-year anniversary?
Yeah, I think we've actually put 106 shows in the can as of today.
Really?
Today will be our 106th show.
Wow.
Yeah, can you imagine that?
Is it 106? Because I think today is literally we're into our 3rd year.
Yeah, actually,
there's 54 weeks in a year now.
No, but I think we actually started in the middle of the month a couple of years ago in September. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we didn't start the very first week because it was.
But you're not counting
Memorial
off like
Day.
maybe the 3 out of. I think about this, out of 2 years, there was only like 3
that either of us took off. Yeah.
4 shows that we took off.
Yeah, and only one we ever missed because of the weather.
Right. Yeah, snow. We had it canned and ready to go.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the other ones, either I was here or you were here.
Yep. So no, we've been getting up early every week to to get the show together.
Yeah, I'm not sure that's working for my body, but
Well, hey folks, this morning what we're going to be talking about, obviously we're going to have our favorite home inspector on, John Stas, later in the show. And John's going to be talking about the differences between a residential, a multifamily, and a commercial or industrial property inspection, because there are differences on that. And Kingsley and I today, we're going to be talking about real estate commissions. Where does it all go? What are the myths? What are the fairy tales? Because there are a lot of things that probably are not portrayed correctly, sometimes by real estate agents, sometimes by their firms. And, we want to sort of explain to everybody really how the commission works, where does it go? And so we'll be talking about that. The rates, Kingsley, up, even after the Feds.
Yeah, now we'll wait to see what happens on Monday.
Okay. May shake down a little bit.
I'm thinking it's going to, but they're already up.
Do you think they priced it in, or
over the last couple of weeks they priced in?
They priced it in
because we definitely pushed over 5% over the last few weeks. But
the Fed funds rate that they talk about a lot of times here, that's what you hear them shouting about in the news. That's really that's like something called for the overnight rate that one bank lends to another.
The Fed fund rate really doesn't directly affect mortgage rates
at all, right?
Well, no.
Not unless we're doing an overnight loan.
Well, exactly.
Right. Okay.
Right. But yeah, it's called the fund rate, and the fund rate, will fluctuate up and down, and the market has already really taken into account that rate increase, but it doesn't affect mortgage rates directly.
Right. So a lot of times, what I'm hearing is that the Fed is planning, a couple more jumps, but what they're actually talking about, folks, is that Fed funds rate. A lot of that's their overnight rate. That is not what directly impacts the mortgage interest rates.
No, and it's funny that you bring that up. There was an article recently that came out on that, or at least that I read. And it used to be that, people would tie the 10-year, treasury bond to the 30-year rates a little bit more so. Now it's more like the 7-year and 5-year. And then they were even, for a little while, it was so closely correlated, the 2-year was actually an effect on what the rates were. So, the market this year has just been, I don't know how else to say, just an anomaly as far as what you're supposed to use to be able to predict what's been going on with the mortgage rates, because so many factors have come forward, and everybody was thinking, last year that rates were going to jump. We kept talking about it. And for whatever reason, they either remained the same or slightly lowered and just kind of floated along. So here we are finally, interest rate. And look, interest rates going up is a good thing, folks. It is actually meant as a mechanism to kind of slow the economy down a little bit, to just take the throttle back a hair, to keep things from blowing up and doing bad things. So when they raise the rates, that's a good thing. That means the economy's doing great, and they're just trying to throttle it back just a little bit to keep it even keeled.
Right, because things are starting to get a little bit ahead of themselves, and when they factor in against inflation and things like that, that's what they're really monitoring.
Right. And if it's monitored correctly, what happens, and it's going to happen, it's not a bad thing. Rates are going to slowly but surely tick up, and then eventually it's going to cycle to the point where rates are going to drop again. And if it's throttled correctly, and that's with interest rates and Fed rates and the whole 9 yards, that drop off isn't like 2007. It'll be a
Right.
drop off, and then obviously you're going to have that refi era where people will have the opportunity to refinance again into
But
lower rates.
people that are sitting on the fence right now should probably be looking back, getting a little bit more serious if they're tight. If they're trying to buy at the max of what they can do, right?
Here's the thing. I mean, everybody that calls me for pre-qualification or pre-approval, I mean, aside from just becoming pre-approved, I'm your finance expert for life, especially with your mortgage. And what we do is we look at a number of different factors, and one of them is rent versus own, buy now versus buy later. And if you, at least on today's day and age, over the last year, let's say, buying now most of the time is going to win out over buying later. And
Well, because prices go up.
and that's assuming that we're in an even keel economy, right? Because you've got, on average in Pennsylvania, 3.5% appreciation per year, at least this year, right? Is what they're predicting for the upcoming year.
Right. I think nationwide they said right now we're at about a 7% appreciation rate, but that's nationwide. Folks.
Nationwide.
We're always in the middle.
Pennsylvania is one of the states that wasn't hit by the huge crash as much as most of the other ones, right?
Correct.
So the curve doesn't quite get the same highs and lows. It's a little bit more even keeled. So we're at 3.5%, at least as far as what they're predicting as far as appreciation and value. Interest rates are still expected to go up. So your buying power over the course of the next year will go down by waiting. So what you're banking on, and what everybody thinks they're banking on, is for that cyclical drop, which may or may not happen a year, 2, 3, 4, 5 years from now. We don't know exactly. It's hard to tell. There's a lot of people that are predicting, 2 years.
What I'm seeing for a lot of the people that, like the millennials or people looking just in general for their first home, that right now they're really truly able to buy for less than what a lot of them are renting for.
Oh, it's still, yeah.
Right. I mean,
Absolutely.
it's just a great time for them. And with a lot of the mortgage programs we've talked about over the time, really, they can really almost get in a home many times for about the same amount if they're putting down first month's, last month's, and a security deposit, right? They're renting for $1,500. There's almost $5,000. We can almost put them in a home, right?
Yeah.
Because the lending has gotten a little bit better. There's so many good 100% programs.
There's
out there.
a lot of programs. Aside from all of the down payment assistance that we've talked about for, the local area of Pennsylvania, right? Every county shouldn't say every county, but most counties have some sort of down payment assistance program.
That's nationwide.
Nationwide.
I mean, there's all sorts of assistance programs. I mean, like even on the 100%, there's USDA, right? You got VA.
USDA, VA. We carry, what's called a Chinoa fund, down payment assistance
Spell
program.
that. What is Chinoa fund? That sounds like Chewbacca or Chewbacca from
Chihuahua,
Star
the
Wars.
Chihuahua
What
fund.
is that?
Right. So for every home you buy, you get an allowance towards tacos, right? The Chihuahua fund.
Okay, I got you now. Those Chihuahuas are mean little dogs. I have one if you want one.
No, but it's actually geared for, in this particular case, I hate to use the term first-time home buyers because that's truly not what FHA stands for. But with the FHA program, there is a second mortgage that can go along, and a lot of times it can actually be a forgivable second mortgage. Just depends on a lot of the parameters of the program and the buyer, of course. But it will actually take the 3.5% that's required for FHA and fill that gap. And what's beautiful about that program is that you can still utilize all of the other benefits of FHA. For example, the 6% seller concession, seller help towards closing costs. So somebody that's got, decent credit, when I say decent credit, typically they're looking for the 620 to 640 credit scores. And No 90-day lates or anything like that over the last year is what they're looking at. So you can all but move into a house with $1,000.
I just want to back you up on something. Can you explain what a 90-day late is? Does that mean they didn't pay the bill for 90 days?
Yeah, basically. So if
well, okay. So no, I wasn't. Because a lot of times there's confusion on that. But they could have a rolling late, right? Let's say that if they're
a rolling late is not a 90-day late. A 90-day late means your bill was due January 1st.
Okay.
Right? You didn't pay it by February 1st. You didn't pay it by March 1st. And you didn't pay it by April 1st. So once it hit April 1st, it was 90 days that elapsed since the time it was due.
Okay.
All right, so that it rolled. It went from a 30 to a 60 to a 90.
It really is like 90 days I haven't paid my bills.
Right. So what happens is on your credit, and at that particular point anyway, you can pretty much all but guarantee that your score is not going to be 620. Okay, because depending on what account it was, you've now had a 30-day late reported on your credit report. You also have a 60-day late reported on your credit report, and now you have a 90-day late reported on your credit report.
Gotcha.
So at that particular point, your score has just dropped off the face of the planet.
We should probably do a show on credit.
I have one coming up.
Okay, because, I think even for real estate professionals, I think there's always some questions in it because it's not our daily arena. I mean, usually we rely on a mortgage expert.
And you should, because that's not that's not your expert field.
Right. No,
However,
it isn't.
You should have some basics. So we actually had some training 3 weeks ago on credit that I had available to the realtors of GHAR. And we're actually going to have that expert on our show.
Oh, nice.
Upcoming, who's going to go over all those little weird questions that people have about, well, what happens if I have a charged off cell phone bill from 7 years ago? Because it seems like everybody's got a charge off from either A, DirecTV, a cable bill.
What about a medical bill?
Medical bill is a very common thing. And
so do they have to pay that medical bill?
Depends on the program, but FHA, no.
No.
And then you also have medical bills are all but ignored.
Really?
For the most part, at least for an FHA program. So when you have, let's say, score issues and you're trying to get qualified for these great grant programs where you need a 620 or 640, right, or USDA, if you've got a lot of medical charge-offs that occurred recently, it certainly probably affected your score. So in that instance, for example, well, hey, look, let's talk to our credit guy and see if he can't help you, because most of the time in 30 to 45 days, a lot of that stuff can be altered, switched. Your score can be raised by a number of different factors.
So it's definitely something somebody should look into.
Yeah, and that's why I think it's a great thing to have a show on.
Yeah, no, I do too. Well, I know we told everyone we're going to talk about commissions. So we want to talk a little bit now. We're going to get into real estate commissions. So let me just give you a little bit of an idea how it typically works. Let's just say that typically, let's just use a 6% commission as an example. So if someone's paying a 6...
Now, is 6% supposed to be standard?
Well, we can't talk about that. I mean, you get into some different issues there. But I mean, let's just use 6% because we're really...
Well, this is a radio show.
Yeah, I know. We're going to use 6% as an example. Well, what's typical, I see commissions anywhere from 5% to 10% on property.
Explain why we're not supposed to discuss what's typical.
Because it can be restraint of trade. We can get into some issues where commissions shouldn't really be discussed because.
And that's because they're negotiable between the client and the realtor.
They are negotiable, and you just don't ever want anyone to say that people are in collusion or anything on that, or that the rate's been set. So that's why broker to broker, we never talk about them. It's always the elephant in the room.
So from an well, I guess I can't say it. So for somebody that doesn't understand it, 6% is what seems to be customary.
Right, we're just going to
in the industry.
We're going to use that for the example.
Okay.
So I just want to explain to our listeners, for example, where does all the money go? Because that's what they want to know, right? It's the real estate commission is typically the largest fee that they're going to pay on their closing cost document, correct? I mean, I don't know of anything bigger.
Well, the only thing as close would be seller concession for seller help on an FHA loan.
Oh, well, there you go. All right.
Yeah.
All right, 6%, folks. So let's just using that as an example. So that money, that 6% right off the bat, gets split between usually two companies. 3% goes to the company that brought the buyer. 3% goes to the company that is the listing company and handling everything for the seller. Now, there's been a change in things over the years. When I first got in the business 30 years ago, probably 60% of all homes were sold what we call in-house. So I worked for, a large regional broker here. At that point in time, we actually got bonused if we sold an in-house listing. Now,
and wasn't it more prevalent back then because obviously we didn't have the same technology?
Correct.
And you had books.
Well, yes. One, because things weren't out there on Zillow and that, and agents weren't buying my listing, but another agent's buying leads that come in off of my listing on a third-party site.
Right. So if I was another realtor in town, the only way that I would know that you put a listing out yesterday is if I saw a sign in the yard.
A sign, or you got the book, which came out weekly. Those books came out weekly.
So if you did it yesterday, I might not know about it till next week.
Sometimes a 2-week lag, right? Because they used to come out, I think, on a Wednesday.
Which gave you an advantage.
Correct, on the in-house side.
Right, because you were able to market that to your own
everyone
clientele.
in the company already knew it because it was up on the board.
Okay.
Yeah, so they knew that you had it. So sometimes that could give them up to a 2-week, well, about a 13-day jump time because of printing. It's not overnight to print it until the books got delivered, till you found it in the book. So that is definitely a difference. So half goes to the selling company, half goes to the company that lists the property. And let's just talk about that. So now we've got 3%. I'm going to talk on the listing side first. So on the listing side, most agencies, there's several different types. So you have 100% agents, and then you have split fee agents. So a split fee agent would get a portion of that. So I know, and that could range so that out of that $3,000, I've seen it where depending on their level of experience and the way the brokerage works, the firm works, they may get anywhere from 30 to 70% of that money that came in. So they may actually get, let's just say...
The brokerage gets 70%?
No. The agent.
Okay.
Good question. Now, the agent would get it. So let's just use round numbers. Let's say they're getting half. So $1,500 goes to the company they work for with the flag outside for the brand.
Mm-hmm.
And that's covering the brokerage for their overhead. Signs, running offices.
Well, no. Let's go through that while we're breaking this down because, you're just kind of generally passing over. Oh, it kind of goes over overhead. But what I don't think most people understand is, you're getting $1,500.
Well, I know. I'm going to go into that. You mean for the agent?
No. For
either
the
side. Okay.
For the broker. So you've got this broker that's sitting there, and eating my donut, my coffee. Thanks, Bob. Thanks for that $1,500. I'm going to go out to eat tonight with that. I don't think it quite works that easy.
No, it doesn't. So on the brokerage side, let's talk about that. So the broker's paying office rents, paying for telephones, paying for internet website, paying for marketing, paying for many times signage, lock boxes, administration help.
Insurances?
Insurances. So they're going to be carrying E&O, errors and omissions insurance. Most carry general liability. And as you know, our firm also carries cybersecurity insurance on top of all that.
What about attorneys?
Yes, you actually have legal fees because questions come up that can't be answered.
How about accounting?
And accounting, cost for checks,
and
cost for paperwork.
And I know with your firm that you've never had issues with clients to where you've actually had to have representation, right?
Correct.
So those attorney fees, could be billed.
Well, you still end up with attorney fees for most, because most brokerages, if they're a company, they're set up as a corporation or an LLC.
Right.
So, you've got to do your annual meetings, you've got to do your monthly meetings, if you're a corporation, and they're usually doing, the notes and keeping your books for you.
And I'm sure nowadays there's a little bit more what we call oversight, meaning you've got to pay somebody to basically look through the files to make sure.
That would be compliance management. Right. So that's all taken care out of that. So typically, most brokerages work on, out of all that money, let's say we got that $1,500 in, typical profit for a brokerage is they shoot for 8% pre-tax profit. Okay, so that would be 8% of the $1,500. So let's see, about $120.
Oh, pays for my bar bill.
Right. So it's not as much as what people think. On the other side, for the agent, things that the agents pay for, agent got the $1,500. First of all, they've got to pay Uncle Sam. They have to pay the self-employment tax. So let's just say roughly a third of that off. Let's just say $500 just for taxes because they're self-employed, right? They have to pay their health care. They have to pay for their vehicles. They have to pay for their licensing fees.
And let's go back to vehicles real quick, because any realtor that is doing it full-time is probably burning at least 30 to 50,000 miles a year.
Yeah, I would say.
I mean, a full-time agent. So, going out and getting a 199 lease special with 10,000 miles isn't going to cut it.
No, you need 5 of them.
Right. So I don't think people understand that realtors that are full-time realtors go through more cars.
Correct.
I mean, you're buying a car almost every 2 to 3 years.
Absolutely. So, the agent has to pay, Uncle Sam. They're paying their own health care. They're going to also pay, usually a portion of the E&O insurance. They're also going to pay all their marketing costs. So let's just say that they put your property on the market. Let's say they get professional photographs done. They're getting professional flyers done.
And most people nowadays, especially if you're in the higher level houses, are getting aerial photos.
Correct.
Or videos.
And then they're going to be paying probably for internet ads. They may be putting out postcards that they're paying for. And
Which isn't cheap.
No, and we aren't even getting into their time.
And as a lender that helps some realtors out with some of their open houses throughout the week, just printing out the postcards and flyers can be $100 just for that one open house for that one weekend.
Right. Exactly.
So, this adds up. So you take that $1,000 and just for the postcards and flyers, you could be down to $900.
Right. So I'm going to say that, till they get all said and done, they pay for everything. Most realtors, if they're doing good, they're working on, after they're paying all their expenses, maybe 20-25% is what they're left with. Now then they've got to pay for their household bills and everything else out of that.
Right. And let's take into account too that the average realtor closes how many deals a year?
Nationwide, about 8.
Okay. So that's maybe one every 2 months. Little more than that.
Right.
But depending on the area.
Yep.
So now you've got that 25%, right, of a $100,000 property.
And you got to make it last for 6 weeks.
You got to make it last for 6 weeks to 2 months.
Right. And what people don't understand too is that we're actually working contingent fees. So there's a lot of times a real estate agent will go out there, they'll put up their sign, they'll do all the work, have hours and hours into the process.
And expenses.
And
not get anything out of it.
And the house doesn't sell. Boom. So that all has to be calculated into the cost of it. And where that takes me is there's a company out there right now called Purple Bricks. Purple Bricks is very large in Australia. They're also very large in England right now. And here now in the States, they charge a $3,600 flat fee to sell your house. That does not include what we're going to talk about here in a minute for the agent that brings the buyer. Okay, that's on top of that. Okay, but you cut them a $3,600 check, folks, when they sit down with you.
Up front?
Up front.
Not when it closes.
Right. And whether it sells or not, you're done, So
it's a gamble.
But it's a game changer. But it puts the risk on the seller.
Right.
right? And that way the agent knows they're going to get paid. Okay?
Right.
They know right up front they're getting paid on this.
I would, yeah, why not?
Right, which makes it a little bit less risk, you know.
Now $3,600 goes to the brokerage.
Correct, and then it would be either their split,
Whatever their split
or whatever.
is. Right, okay.
Correct, you got it.
Interesting.
Yeah, so folks, a lot of times people think, oh, well, they see somebody, well, they're a multi-million-dollar producer. Let's just put that into real numbers. So assuming that 6% number we talked about, let's say that the agent sold $2 million worth of property, okay? And so
in 1 month?
No, in the year, for a year, just to give them an example.
Okay.
So $30,000 per million, that's $60,000 that they would have brought in. Some of them would have split that with the broker. So let's just say that leaves them with 30. So they're making, a $2 million producer may only be grossing, what, $5,000 a month? Not even that, right? No, not even that.
No.
No.
$2 million
yeah,
at 3%.
$2,500 a month.
Right. That says at 3% is 60 grand. That's gross.
Yeah, so
the whole
$2,500 a month
for a $2 million producer.
They've got to take all their expenses out.
Now, a $2 million producer is an average realtor.
Correct.
So that is the guy or woman, that is doing the 8 deals per year.
Correct. I think that would be a fairly good average.
So the average realtor's making maybe I would say 35 or 36,000 a year.
I would say 30 to 42 gross, 30 to 45 maybe gross.
Okay.
And then they've got to take out all their expenses.
And taxes.
So
and car payment.
Yep. I know a lot of times the public thinks that we make way too much money for it, but that's sort of where it is from the real estate agent side that's on the listing side. Now the buyer, let's talk about that buyer's agent. Again, the numbers are going to get split again. If they're a 100% agent, they would, and we'll broach on that, they would get all of that money, but then they're carrying even more expenses. They may be renting their own office, they're carrying their own secretary, they're carrying maybe their own 800 numbers,
buyer's
their
agent?
Own staff. I'm just saying a 100% agent. 100% agent.
I thought we were just talking about buyer's agents.
No. I was just giving an example compared, with the split fee, that what is the brokerage expenses now that agent takes on. So like you've heard me say it before, an agent can either have 100% of the grape or 70% of the watermelon. It just depends on where they want to shift the expenses and who they want to do it.
So and obviously that has become a little bit more prevalent in today's marketplace is the 100%ers, right?
Right, correct.
So all you're really doing is, as a broker, 100% broker, you're still taking on all the risk.
Correct.
Legal risk.
Well, yeah, and you're still running everything 365 days a year, whether the agents do anything or not.
Right. So you still have expenses as a broker, right?
Correct. Meter's running.
The realtor is now taking on more of the income, but they're also taking on a lot more of the responsibility. So they're taking on the E&O insurance.
Yep, they're taking on, well, yes, they're going to take on the E&O insurance. They may take on general liability. They may rent an office. They, administration, they may have their own secretary, their own admin.
So
we're sort of run like a sub-company.
So in other words, whether or not you're working for a broker at whatever level you're working at, and that obviously we can break that down too, because if I'm getting, let's say, a 50% split, which is what we use for
the example,
a lot of times the broker is supplying leads to me as a realtor.
Yeah, that's a whole other thing.
That's a whole other expense to the broker.
But you're right. If they're 100%, the lead generation falls.
They have to get their own lead generation. So that's when you see all of the 1,000 posts out on Facebook that everybody's sick of seeing, right?
Right.
Because they're trying to make sure that that I'm the realtor in this town.
Right, or they may be buying them from a third-party vendor like Zillow or Realtor.com.
Which I don't think anybody's going to be doing anytime soon anymore. That's a whole other,
that's another show.
Yeah, we've already had that show, I believe. So all these expenses fall on that realtor.
Correct.
Including the E&O insurance, which is liability.
Right.
Right. All the marketing costs,
signs,
lock boxes, whole 9 yards. So most of the time, well, all the time, before they start off in a month, they're in the hole.
Correct. They've got expenses. Right. A lot of times that, they haven't considered.
I mean, as a realtor, even before you start, you've got the MLS fees.
Correct. Multiple listing services.
You've got the lockbox fees.
Correct.
Especially in this area here, they've got numerous different boxes, right? So if you drive from Lancaster to Lebanon, you may have a different lockbox.
Yep. You've got realtor dues.
And this is all before you
make dime one.
Right. And we're talking what, $1,000, $1,500 a year before you even open your doors?
I think that's a fair number. Yeah, I think that's a fair number.
Before your phones or anything else.
Correct.
Or car expenses.
Before your cell phone bill, before your inkjet printer, your paper,
any of that, websites,
your internet service, everything. I mean, so it runs up quick. So on the other side, let's talk about a little bit where the buyer agent money goes, so that after we talk with Mr. Stas here this morning, maybe we'll be able to explain to them, who's really paying the commission. So a buyer's agent now, they're the ones that are out showing the homes, okay, and they're usually going to be the one that writes the offer and represents you. That's going to take you through, hold your hand all the way through to closing. That money's going to get split, just like we were talking about, maybe 50-50, maybe 70-30, maybe they're 100% agent. But you have to realize, like right now in the market, as tight as it is, they may take you out 5, 6, 7, 8 times till they find a house that you make an offer on. You make the offer on that house, and what we're seeing, right, Kingsley, is, now there's 4 other offers, and they get beat out. So now we're back on the road again. Now we're back out looking. We're back out. We're redoing our job again, doing that again. And sometimes that happens over and over, 4, 5, 6 times. So the realtors right now, folks, in my opinion, doing this 30 years, they're working harder every day to make less money. Because if they're working for you as a buyer's agent, they have to show more houses, write more offers, to just get one that actually they're able to get you the keys on. And that's something you have to bear in mind.
Now, with that being said, I'm going to interject. The realtors that are out there having issues with getting their offers accepted, this is actually, I'm going to do a live presentation, just a quick thing on ways to increase your offer acceptance. I'll do a Facebook Live either on Real Estate Radio Guys or my mortgage page, because I think that's going to help with the expenses on that. So for the realtors out there that are listening, there are ways to up the percentage of your offers getting accepted, and I'll do a Facebook Live, or if you want to actually send me an IM, I can send you out the report on that.
Yeah, I mean, the thing that you had this week was very interesting. So they should be going to these. It's free, right?
No, this is just something I'll do separately. But yeah, I do have the free training every week, different topics. I think this week was on hyperlocal.
Right, it was hyperlocal. Right. I did finally get a chance to watch the replay.
Actually, a great show, which I think you and I both knew most of it, but there's always something in there that I pick up that's very helpful.
All you need is one kernel.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, one little popcorn.
So folks, realize that buyer's agent, they're working hard for you. All commissions at the end of the day, though, are negotiable, right?
Yeah.
Whether you're hiring a buyer's agent or you're putting your home on the market.
Which is why you have a large, array of different companies and different philosophies.
Right. There's you can slice it and dice it a whole lot of different ways.
Are we going to talk about Big Purple, Barney, the Barney company?
Well, you mean Purple Brick?
Yeah.
Well, Purple Brick's $3,600. You pay it up front.
And well, you say they're big in Great Britain and Australia.
Correct.
But
they're here now.
They are here now.
They are here now.
Is that similar to? I think we actually had sale by owner kind of.
Well, no, because you're actually paying them that $3,600. You're giving them that check right there at the closing, right there when they sign the listing agreement, and the agent's getting paid. So just realize that, I don't know, I'm doing this many years. I see a lot of people that are going to sell their home and they're cash poor, right? They don't have $3,600 to be able to write me that check. So that's when they would need to use a traditional broker where it's like a contingent fee, right? A little bit like an attorney.
Right.
So that's really the difference here. I mean, I like the concept of getting paid.
Well, like you said, you were going to go into a little bit more specifics as far as if I am selling my house and I give Barney a check for $3,600.
Right.
What am I getting for my $3,600, and do I have to pay anything over that?
Yes, you have to pay the buyer's agent. Whoever brings the buyer, you're going to still have to pay them, I'm going to say from 2.5% to 3.5% probably on average is what we would see. So it's a gamble for you. It's a gamble, but it's putting the risk onto the seller.
Okay, so I'm paying $3,600.
Right.
Barney's got my money. What are they doing for it? I mean, are they doing the traditional photos, aerial photos, or all that kind of stuff, add-ons?
That's extras.
So basically $3,600 gets me what, on the MLS?
Well, I think they do a little bit more than that, but
maybe some internet marketing,
correct,
standard stuff, blah 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 blah.
Right.
Okay, but none of the quote unquote upgrades.
Correct.
So this isn't premium service. This is
they're not going to be spending money to have somebody come and do a video of your home. Right?
So this is like blue light special kind of deal here.
Right. So I know our favorite home inspector, Mr. Stas, is on the line now.
And I want to get back to that a little bit more after.
We're going to come back. So, good morning, John. How are you doing?
Hey, good morning. Doing great.
Great.
Are you outside today or what?
No, inside.
Oh, very nice. It's a shame. It's a beautiful, crisp morning. I'm wearing my shorts and flip-flops today. I'm still refusing to fall into the pumpkin spice realm and fall. I'll hold off as long as I can. So
stretch it out.
How you doing, John?
Good. So today we're going to talk about differences between commercial, multi-unit, and residential inspections. So with a residential inspection, a lot of the focus is on operating, the furnace and operating things. As we get to the commercial inspections, depending on the size of the building, sometimes we even have to get a team of people. For example, a parking garage where there's structural concrete, or a high-rise building where there's cantilevered patios that are structural concrete. We get into specialty things where we'll need to get a structural engineer to look at those. So we'll have to actually put together a team of specialists because there's so many different components to that building. An elevator. So we'll get have somebody check the elevator. One inspector can't inspect all the systems. Get into a lot of different types of systems, and it's a slightly different inspection standard.
So what's different with the inspections, John?
Well, as I was saying, it's more of a team effort. Depending on the size of a building, a high-rise building, you're going to have a team of people. There's a lot of different types of components that you wouldn't find in a residential house, such as different types of ventilation systems that need to be identified, different types of electrical systems that you wouldn't find in a residential property, different heating and cooling systems. So, it's a completely different animal, and a lot of times you need a team of people just because of the sheer size of the building. With a high-rise building or a commercial building. So it goes to a different inspection standard as well, different roofing materials. So that's the main difference, is you find a whole different set of the components that you wouldn't find in a residential home.
So that's from residential to commercial, right? What about,
yes.
Do you do any sort of industrial inspections?
Well, commercial, industrial, they're more similar than to residential. So, with a commercial inspection, commercial property, we're looking at the parking lot area, the signage, it's an electric sign, it's a wooden sign, documenting things like that.
So, And I know we did a show on this prior too, but when you do an inspection on a commercial property, do you individually do any sort of environmentally savvy or any sort of tests that say, okay, look, we've got issues with a shop because it looks like maybe there's antifreeze all over the place, or there might be some ground soil issues where we've had oil, dripping into the soil underneath? Anything to that effect?
Well, sure. That would be a phase one inspection, where phase one would be, we don't actually do those, but that's where research is done. What's the history of the property? What was it used for? Past usage. Talk to the neighbors. A utility study is done. Where's the transformer? Where's the electrical coming from? Where's the other utilities that may service the property, the gas lines? Looking for staining and things like that. So that's phase one, is part of more of a environmentally oriented inspection. Then phase two, if needed, then there would be testing. So for example, phase one would say, okay, well, it was they stored cars in this area, and there's drums of suspect material. And then phase two would be, okay, well, we're going to test the ground here because we think there might be a tank or there's staining on the ground, or we're going to test these drums and see what this material is. Phase two would be the testing phase. And then if there's any cleanup needed, that would be phase three.
So let me ask you this. From a point of view of a client, I'm looking to buy a strip mall, right? And in that strip mall, on the end, there's a tire store on one side and a restaurant on the other side, right? So I've got a liquor license, and on the other side, I've got issues with possible chemical issues. And I come to EnviroQuest and I say, hey, look, I'm looking to purchase this property. I've got an array of different stores and commercial fronts on this land that I'm buying. Do you handle that as a package? In other words, if I hired John, do you at that point take into account and put a report together that would include phase one and or phase two if necessary? Do you handle subbing out who does those sort of tests, or would I need to schedule two separate tests to have all that stuff done?
Well, sure. We do the property inspection side of it. We don't do the phase one, the environmental. Phase one involves also, like as I said, the phase one is informational. So that's usually they'll use like a valet service to look at the records databases to see, okay, where are all the gas stations located? Is there any environmental spills or cleanups within, let's say a mile radius? So that's the phase one, which we don't do, but a lot of times a bank would have you do that. We would handle the property inspection. We would get up and walk the roof. What type of roof is it? What condition is it in?
So you would be my first phone call. In other words, John, I'm looking at buying the strip mall. I need to make sure the property's, physically sound. I need to know what I'm getting into as far as systems and age of this and issues that I may have to even maybe move to that next step of doing a phase one of environmental issues.
Yeah, exactly. We would do the property inspection, looking at the structure, the roofing, insulation, the interior spaces, electrical. We would do all that just as in a residential home inspection, but just slightly different components and a little bit of a different standard. But it's basically the same, looking at the, doing a walkthrough and documenting any, number one, documenting what's there, what type, and number two, documenting defects that we find.
Interesting. All right, so.
Well, John, so let's just say that I have a 4-unit. So would that be like the cost of like 4 home inspections? So it might be like $1,200 to $1,500.
But usually, we would ask you, what's the square footage, how many units? So a 4-unit, that's still considered a residential property. Unless it's a 4-unit residential is considered a residential property. So it's not like 4 home inspections. It would be the cost of a regular home inspection plus a slight charge extra for each additional unit over 1.
Okay, so then let's just say for like a commercial building, maybe I have a restaurant. Is that going to be sort of done based on my square footage?
Exactly, yeah, we look at the square footage.
And the same thing then for like a warehouse building or something like that?
Yeah, we go by the square footage. If you call up to order that, we'd ask you, where is it located, what's the square footage, and then we give you a free quote on what it would take to do that.
Fantastic. Well, John, what's the best contact numbers for you?
Sure, best number to reach us is 717-233-6144.
All right, and I know it's EVQ Harrisburg,
which we have right up on the
Facebook site right now.
And
Yep.
you just click right here and request a service. And of course, as always, you're on Facebook at EVQ Harrisburg as well, correct?
That's correct.
All right, John, hey, thanks for coming on.
Have a great weekend.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Talk to you
guys
later.
next week.
All right. So, yeah, I know there have been some questions, with people over time, about the differences in the inspections. So hopefully that clears us up a little bit on some of it. But I wanted to get into about, the commission overall, because you're seeing different commission models come out. We're seeing things come out where maybe it's an auction platform where they're adding the buyer agent commission or a premium on top. Or, the traditional where, the buyer's agent, the biggest lie is always says to the seller or to their client, hey, it doesn't cost you anything for my services. The seller's going to pay me. That's a lie. I mean, there's nothing else that can be said. It's a lie.
Well,
because it's all priced in, right?
It may be priced in, but the check's coming from the seller.
But the check that the seller's getting is coming from the buyer.
Well, but that's also being negotiated.
Right, so it's all negotiated in.
So
no matter how it's done, whether it's added on top or whatever, right?
Right.
At the end of the day, the buyer is paying their portion of the commission because it's negotiated in. True?
Technically, no. If you're going according to what your taxes are going to show, the seller is paying that expense. Now,
correct. Well, that they're able to write it off as an expense for themselves.
The buyer is purchasing the whole value, but it's not their direct expense.
But it's all negotiated in.
Right.
Yeah. Let's just use. Let's
go to the auction site. Right.
Okay.
Let's go to auction because we all know that one of the big platforms nowadays is really just a matter of perception.
Correct.
So my house is $100,000. The market value is $100,000.
Right.
Okay. So if you're selling my home traditionally and it sells for $100,000 without a negotiation, as a seller I'm getting 94, assuming a standard, I shouldn't say standard, but a normal commission. We'll just call it a 6% average.
Right.
Right. So I'm getting 94 now,
right,
which is below what my market value is.
Right. So it was all negotiated in, right?
It is, but if I'm going to get market value for my property,
you should have sold it for sale by owner.
Then I should have sold it for $100,000, and the buyer should be paying the commissions. Or,
yeah, I hear what you're saying.
Or, if we're truly doing it, you're only as a buyer paying for 3%,
right,
or half of whatever the negotiated is, because the buyer's working for you. The buyer's agent.
I think you brought up a very good point. I think the buyer should be able to take off, if they have a buyer agency contract that states that they're paying that commission, they should be able to write that off in their taxes. I'm not a tax guy, I'm not a tax attorney.
See, but there's my point, because they're working for you.
But they should be able to write that off as a cost of purchasing the home.
I agree. Right? And vice versa. At the 3%, as I'm selling it, I should be able to write that off.
Right.
Or whatever it is that I negotiated.
Absolutely. But, I mean, I think it's pretty much considered that no matter how you buy a home, that the commission's always negotiated in.
It's negotiated because...
Right, it still has to appraise from a lender's side.
Right, well, more and more, though, at least from what I'm seeing, is that the commissions, as far as what, from a large array of how it's being done from Barney to auctions to traditional, is becoming separated from the actual purchase of the home. It's becoming more and more of a separate...
A division, yeah, yes, I see that. But, so if all right, so on your house, I give you $100,000 for your house, and you're paying my agent $3,000, right? Wasn't that still, that was still negotiated in, so I still had to pay that money.
The seller does.
No, I still had to pay that money because it's negotiated in.
Yes, but see now, it's all coming down to semantics, because as a buyer, I may be paying $100,000, which is including all of the commissions that are going to the realtors.
Right.
But I'm buying a home.
But I have a document that says that I'm paying that.
I'm buying an asset.
Right, but I have a document that says I'm paying my buyer's agent, so I'm paying it. Still my.
Then it should be $100,000, and you pay the 3%.
It should
cash
to the
agent.
I absolutely understand that, but the lenders don't let that happen.
Well, they can, absolutely.
Oh, well, if they pay it outside.
If they have the cash and are able to pay it.
But the reason it's done this way, let's be honest, is just so it can be financed in.
Yes and no. See,
yeah, come on.
You're looking at it. Well,
so it can be financed.
You can look at it from two different angles, right? Maybe,
no. Now we're getting into semantics on the other side.
Yeah, we are, because everybody's going to look at it differently. So if I buy a house for $100,000, the market value for that house is $100,000. Whether or not I'm paying $6,000 or $3,000, the market value is still $100,000. So all that 3% is, and this is where it's my choice as a seller, is to sell for sale by owner. So that 3% because I'm paying you a service.
Right.
To do a job.
Right.
Is basically what that is. So instead of paying you $3,000 or 3%, I'm going to take on the responsibility and I'm going to attempt to hack it myself.
Right.
Right? Same with the other side. I don't necessarily need an agent, because for a long time, people thought it was better to go to the listing agent thinking you were going to get a better deal.
And why did they do that? They did that so they could possibly negotiate out some of that commission, right?
Right.
Right.
So
So whose money is it then? It can be split both ways.
I think at the end of the day, it really is a matter of just moving numbers around.
All right, so let's look at it this way.
To make the deal happen.
Let's go back to the $100,000 example. All right, so now if I don't have a buyer's agent and I'm not using their services, but I want to come and buy your home, then shouldn't I be able to buy it for $97,000 without any agent except your listing agent?
You would think.
Right, because then it really is my money. I'm in control. So my point on that is, most times if it's listed, I've got to use an agent. So now I'm not going to get it at that $97,000. I'm going to have to pay the $100,000. And we've actually seen where agents have buyer agent contracts where it's for more.
Oh yeah.
Right? Let's say they have a minimum commission.
Because they're hiring them for a service.
Right.
So in a lot of...
So whose money's that?
Well, now I'm paying it out of pocket. That's my money.
Right, or if it's a minimum commission, so that's other money that has to be built into from the sales
It's a closing cost.
Right.
It's a closing cost. And at the end of the day, it's a cost.
Right.
Somebody is bearing
it. It's a cost, but I don't think it's accurate. I think it's misrepresentation to tell a consumer that my services cost you nothing, because it's built into the price. So wait a minute. Let's use it as a car, Kingsley. So I'm going to buy that car from you. Without the radio, it's this price. With the radio, it's another price, right?
No.
You always throw the radio in.
Bad analogy.
Okay.
Bad analogy.
All right, give me another one.
Okay, so I'm going to go back to the house. If we were to separate it out the way theoretically it should be, right? Now all of a sudden you're just making it that much harder for the buyer to buy, especially if we're going to get into all of the down payment assistance, first-time home buyer.
Well, if it's not negotiated in.
Right.
Right. But I mean, I'm still saying, in other words,
but see now,
part of the price I'm paying,
you are affecting the market value of the properties now across the world.
No, but that's part of the price that I'm paying is actually my money that's going to that agent.
No, because the seller, when selling the house, and it's all based on the contract that you sign with the listing agreement, right?
Right.
And that listing agreement states that as part of your costs of selling this house, you are paying not only for my marketing and my assistance as the listing agent, but you are also paying to help a buyer find this house and to purchase this house. So it's an expense to the seller. Right from the get-go, that's where it is specified.
But it's negotiated in.
You don't have to accept whatever their offer is.
So let me say, but just using another analogy, but it's in the price. So let's just say I'm buying another product, right? Okay, and that there's a fee or a commission in there. Isn't it still my money that's paying it? It's built into the price I'm paying, but it's still my money at the end of the day that's paying that fee.
No, market value determines that.
See, I don't see it that way.
Market value determines that because that is determined by any other product. Let's say, for example, I'm Sony. And I've got a 50-inch screen TV that I'm selling for $1,000.
All right, so then the other lie that the buyer's agents say, I'm going to more than save you the money because I'm going to negotiate you a better deal.
No, well, see, now if you're going to negotiate a better deal, that just means you hired the right agent.
Okay, but don't you see properties where they've sold, and from the lending side, you get to see the appraisal, not necessarily the seller's agent may not, where actually it appraised for more than what it was sold for?
Yeah.
So what happened to your market value theory?
Bad negotiating or good negotiating. Hey, look, at the end of the day, the realtor, both of them,
right,
should be doing their job.
Well, yeah.
And part of that is, as a listing agent, I'm supposed to get you the max value of this property.
You are.
And if I don't get you $500 because that's the true market value, then I didn't do my job as a negotiator. On the flip side, the buying agent is doing the same thing. Look, John, this house is not worth $500,000. It's worth $490,000, and we're going to try and get it to $480,000. And if you're able to do so, then you hired the right agent.
Right. I get your viewpoint.
That's value.
I still think it's negotiated in. I still think it's the buyer's dollars. I know it can be split either way. But this is another thing I think we need to go to. Because of buyer's agency, which is pretty much consistent across the country, it's time that all the real estate agents and all the MLSs get their act together, folks. And a buyer, if someone has a buyer's agency agreement, they should be listed in the multiple listing service as a buyer by their social security number, so that another real estate agent doesn't try and sell them. I think if we're actually listing people up as buyers, which is what it is in the market, they should also be in the database.
Man, I see a whole other mountain right there. Wow.
Another can of worms?
Yeah. All right, well, potato, potato, tomato, tomato.
So it's real commissions?
Better agents.
Hoping to save you money. So till next week, folks.
Thanks so much for listening to this episode of the Real Estate Radio Guys with John Rainville and Kingsley Harmer. For more great content and to stay up to date, visit pagoloan.com, brokersrealty.com, and facebook.com/Real Estate Radio Guy. If you enjoyed the episode, please rate and review, and we'll catch you next time on the Real Estate Radio Guys.
From the Your Bath and Kitchen Studios, making ours yours, Oldies 102.9 is WHYL Carlisle. WHYL. You're listening to the Morning Sunshine on Oldies 102.9 WHYL.